So, wait, does that make everything you do with your brain creative exercises? Even math? I kind of don't want to believe that, but it might be true. Hello world, Millie Florence here, and today we are talking about something that I personally have a lot of fun with, and that is creative writing exercises. A creative writing exercise is what it sounds like. It's an activity you do in order to exercise your creative muscles. In other words, your brain. Just like athletes do workouts to make their physical muscles stronger, artists, especially writers, should do creative workouts to make their creative muscles stronger. Today we're going to go through a few of my favorite writing exercises that I love to do, even just for fun. Now, first up is the simplest exercise, and that is free writing. What you need is 5 to 10 minutes, a pen, and a piece of paper. Optionally, you can have a prompt, a little idea to spur your creativity, to give you a bit of a kickstart, and you can write about that prompt. Some people use a computer, but I find using a pen and paper really works well for this activity, and I would definitely suggest that you use some sort of physical medium. Free writing is writing freely. It is writing without boundaries. You don't put any limit on yourself. You don't worry about spelling or grammar or audience, because no one is going to read this unless you want them to, except you. What you do is set a timer. The timer can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Your goal for those minutes is to keep your pen or pencil moving. As simple as that. Just don't stop writing. If you misspell a word, don't go back and fix it. Actually, this is why I say that it's best to use a pen or some sort of permanent marker, because if you're using a pencil, you'll be tempted to go and erase little things and fix them. At the end of the minutes, you stop, you put down your pen. It doesn't matter if you're finished or not. Just stop right there and be done. Remember, this piece of writing isn't meant to be perfect. It's not even meant to be good. Dancers do all sorts of warm-ups before they dance. This is your writing warm-up. No one needs to see it except for you. The important thing is just that it happened. You wrote. You did it! Next, I have a couple variations on something that can be a bit of an art form in and of itself, and that is blackout poetry. What you will need for this exercise is a marker that is thick enough to block out words, a text that you can block out. You can use pages from a really old book if you don't mind ripping them out, but I, as a book protector, much prefer to either print something out from the internet or copy pages from a book that I like using my printer and print those out instead. This can take pretty much however long you want it to, because some people like to work very long and hard on these, and if you do take a long time, you can come up with some pretty fascinating results, but it can also take you only about 15 minutes if you just want to exercise your creative muscles and you aren't really trying to make anything, which I think is just as beneficial as spending a long time trying to make this really pretty and good. For this version of blackout poetry, what you do is quite simply take whatever text you have printed out and make your own text out of it. You do this by blacking out the words on the paper, leaving only a few that spell out a message of your choice. These can get really cool. I've found some online and made some myself that I think are brilliant and gorgeous, and you can do all sorts of different styles with your pen or your marker. I've seen people use different colors. I've seen them circle the words instead of crossing out the others. You can get really creative with these. I've even seen some people paint the entire page and just leave openings in their painting for the words that they want to keep. So if you're really artsy, you can go for that too. You can only use the words on the page. And most of the time, unless you're doing a particular style of blackout poetry, you can only use them in the order that they're already printed. Limitations actually force you to be more creative. The less you have to work with, the more creative you have to be with how you use it. This next version of blackout poetry gives you a bit more freedom because you can choose a bit more of what order you want the words to be in. Basically, what you need is a dark black piece of paper. Then you need a text of your choice, like we talked about in the other Blackout Poetry version, either printed out or copied from your favorite book or ripped from a book you don't really like. Next, take a pair of scissors and cut out each individual word on the page. Because this can be a bit tedious, I actually have a whole plastic baggie in my desk just full of all the words that I've cut out, so that anytime I want to, I can just skip the cutting process and pull out my bag of words and get to work making some poetry. I find that younger children, like my siblings, love helping me cut out and eat each individual words because scissors and paper, so fun. Next, you take a glue stick and glue each word individually on the page to form your own message. Obviously, before you start gluing, you'll want to rearrange the words without gluing them down and fiddle with them and toy with them until you get the message you want. I know I said a lot of these are my favorite, but this next one is my top favorite. My favorite of favorites. I don't know the technical name for it, but I just call it metaphor paper. Basically, what you need is lined paper and a pen. That's it. And that's part of the reason I love it so much. Also, note, yes, you really do need lined paper for this. I've done it a few times using paper that is not lined, and it's just a lot more difficult. So yeah, just pull out a notebook page. You can use a note card. I've used those a lot when I just want to do a few. And once again, this can really take as short or as long a time as you want. What you do is fold your piece of paper in half, and on one side, you are going to write a list of verbs, one on each line. You can do just a few, or you can go all the way down to the bottom of the paper, totally up to you. Then flip the paper over, and on that side, write a bunch of nouns. Once again, these can be any nouns you like. Sometimes I will pick a theme for the types of nouns and verbs I want, but it can be totally up to you, and the first time you do it, I would definitely go themeless and just pick whatever comes to mind. Once you are done writing all your nouns, open up the paper, and you will see each verb linked to each noun. What you will do next is try to make the noun do the verb, metaphorically. So obviously in this case, you wouldn't want to write girl on the noun side and then have run on the other side, because obviously a girl can run. So I would definitely avoid living things. Try to go more for stationary objects, because that really challenges you in your metaphor and simile capacity. So for instance, if on one line I had leap for the verb, and on the other line for the noun I had cake, I might come up with the metaphor, the cake leapt from plate to mouth as they ate. A lot of the metaphors and similes I come up with from this exercise actually do make it into my books. Randomizing nouns and verbs really makes you think creatively and try to figure out, what's some metaphorical way that this thing could do this action? Super low-key, super fun. This is also something that you can do as a group activity. You come up with a list of verbs and nouns, sort of Mad Lib style, and then you open the paper and throw around ideas of how each noun can do each verb. Next up is a simple one that you may have heard of before, and that is 5-word story. Once again, this brings up the idea of the less you have to work with, the more creative you have to be with what you do with it. So if you only have a word count of 5 words to fill, you have to make every word count. You have to really think about every word, and you have to be pretty clever to communicate a story in 5 words. Some of mine have turned out really silly because honestly, I'm actually not that great at this one. It's something I should practice more, but it is still super fun to play with, and I know a lot of my writing classes at schools and libraries have really enjoyed it. Once again, all you need is pen and paper, and this can take only a couple minutes if you want to. Literally, I think some of my 5-word stories were something along the lines of purple trombones are not normal. And it can be anything from that to something absolutely brilliant. It all depends, and you may strike gold. But the point of this is, once again, it gets you thinking about words and story. If If you are crafty, this next writing exercise is for you. I've always found it fun when books include on their pages a little something that is a snippet of paper from the world that the characters live in, whether that's a newspaper article from a fantasy world, or a letter, or a flyer, or anything like that. I've always thought it felt really cool and made the world feel a lot more tangible. Well, you can easily make these yourself. They may not be printed in a book, but they're honestly more realistic if you just do it on a piece of loose paper, especially if you're doing something like a letter or a newspaper article. The concept is simple. Write a newspaper article, a flyer, a letter, or something of that sort. It could be a library receipt from the world of a story. It can be your own original story or a story that you love. What's fun about this is it's not just purely writing. It's also that you get to put together something that not only sounds really cool but looks really cool, like formatting big headlines on a newspaper or making up a signature for a fictional character on a letter and putting it in an envelope. I've written so many fictional letters between my characters in both of my books, Honey Butter and Lydia Green, and several upcoming stories that I can't really talk about right now. It also gives you the opportunity to practice different kinds of writing styles, whether that's writing in a different character voice, or writing in a newspaper announcement voice, or writing in a salesman flyer voice, all depending on what you decide to create. I actually created a letter written from my main character in my book Lydia Green of Mulberry Glen, which I sent out to all of my advanced readers as a little thank you for being advanced readers, and they got a cool little letter from the main character. Well, there you have it, my top 5 creative writing exercises that I love to do and I hope you will enjoy as well. If you end up doing these exercises, please let me know how it went because I would love to hear. These are some of the exercises that I will often do when I teach creative writing workshops at schools and libraries. So if you would be interested in having me lead a creative workshop at your school, library, homeschool co-op, you can click the link in the description that says book me for events. Side note, I do online events completely free, so if you're looking for something like that right now, I would be happy to help you out. If you liked this video, please leave it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more authorly adventures from me, a young homeschooled teen self-published author, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. As I always say, docendo, disco, scribendo, cogito. I learn by teaching and think by writing. Millie Florence, signing out.